Welcome to Sir Bradley Wiggins' Café Aficionado, the podcast that tightens our cleats with cycling's elite. I'm Bradley Wiggins, and every week we take the sport's best guests, stick them in front of a mic, and get them to give you the view from the saddle as you've never heard it before. And as all rides do, we'll be finishing with a coffee and a cake. Coming up in this episode...
Those thoughts do come into your head from time to time, and I remember just lying in this random hotel room, like looking at the ceiling thinking, shit, I can actually win the Tour today. That's when I was like, that's just, and I was like, nah, don't even like contemplate that.
Today's guest is one of the best to ever do it. It is Geraint Thomas. I'm joined, as always, by Graham Wilgoss. Graham?
Brad, good to be good to be with you. Really looking forward to this one. In my career as a sports journalist, it was always a phenomenal, or is always still a phenomenal interview. So fair to say that we're both looking forward to getting stuck into this one. While we're here, this series we should touch on is focused on the greatest race in the world, the Tour de France, and the stories behind its most famous climbs, its most spectacular stages, and its biggest rivalries and riders. And so G fits right in. But on this journey, we want our listeners to come along with us all the way, not just on the pod, but on the socials.
We do. Hit follow so you never miss an episode. Watch every episode on YouTube and follow us in all your usual places on social media at Sir Brad's Cafe. You can get all the links to those in the show notes.
So this episode, Brad, we're heading to Alpe d'Huez in the French Alps, the southeast of France. We're talking, of course, for anyone who needs to place it. It's one of the sport's great natural stadiums. The 21 hairpin bends have witnessed some of the most dramatic moments, featuring some of the most famous names in Tour de France history. Winning on Alpe d'Huez is one thing. It's enough to make your career. Winning on Alpe d'Huez in the yellow jersey on your way to winning the Tour de France is another thing entirely. Only one man in history has done that. The 2018 Tour de France champion, two-time Olympic gold medal winner, and an old teammate of yours, among other things. Geraint Thomas, welcome to Café Aficionado.
Yeah, welcome, Geraint.
How are you, mate?
Thanks for having me, guys. Good, thanks. Yeah, just on top of another training camp up in Tidy, up in on the volcano in Tenerife. So,
hence a slightly patchy, from our point of view anyway, internet connection. But as long as we can hear you,
He is at 2,500 metres, Graham.
Yeah, I think we'll allow it, given given where we are and where you are. Brad, should we get straight into it?
Yeah, Geraint, 2018. I actually watched the race again last night just to recap on what happened. So much happened on the climb that day. But from your point of view, 7 years ago now, your memories of that day, how did the day start out for you? Obviously, you'd won the day before and you were going up the Alpe in the yellow jersey. What was the plan that day? Obviously, you and Froome was still that two-pronged attack at that time. But can you remember, looking back, how it played out that day?
yeah, it was obviously, like you said, I won the day before, took the yellow jersey, and I was just buzzing, to be honest. Like, I remember going to the start, and you do the pre-stage interviews before you sign on and whatever. And one of the guys was like, "Oh, do you reckon you can win today?" And I was just, honestly, it was the first time that had even entered my head. So I was just purely focused on just staying with the GC guys, and I never really thought about winning the stage. And that sort of planted the seed almost. And we started the stage, and we were a super strong team at that point as well. We'd won, how many was it? Like 5, including your tour.
Yeah.
The team had won prior to that. So we were like, we had that aura in the peloton, really. We were Sky, and we knew what we were doing, and we sort of just took the race at a stranglehold, really. And I was buzzing off that, the fact that such a big, strong team was riding for me. And yeah, it was just, I never really thought about it till we got to it must have been the last final few K of the climb, really, to be honest. But halfway through the stage, I remember it was red hot. I was feeling a bit dehydrated, was having to get a load of drinks down me at the top of, was it Croix de Fer maybe we did before it? Yeah, and then drop down and then start the climb. And yeah, to be honest, it was, you know what it's like in the Tour. It's just unreal going up there. Like, the atmosphere is just insane, just buzzing off it.
When you were going up the climb, I mean, you obviously were in yellow, you'd won the day before, but Froome was still the man who was chasing his 5th Tour at that time. I mean, I know as that Tour panned out, that it became more apparent that you were the strongest rider and you were about to win the race. But at that time, knowing you as well, had push come to shove, you probably would have done the job for Froome had been asked. because that's the kind of rider you are, and you'd have sacrificed the chance of winning the Tour if that came about. But there must have been a small part of you still thinking, I can actually win this myself, even at that point of the race.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird situation because, Froome had won 4 Tours before then, and he was after his 5th, and he was super determined to do it. And yeah, I think there was one stage where Egan had just finished his turn, and I was behind Egan. I think Froome was sitting behind me, and I ended up just pulling for maybe 500 meters or so. But through the crowd, and just they were just parting in front of you, last minute, and it looks dodgy on the telly, but when you're in it, it's just it's incredible, that feeling. And but there was a part of me in the back of my head thinking, I can also win this. I'm not gonna completely ruin my chances here and do everything for Froome. So yeah, it was. Yeah, if push had come to shove, I would have maybe done. If they had told me to ride, I would have ridden, but not full gas.
Now, the other big incident that happened on that climb was, of course, we can't see it fully on the TV, but the flare that was up, there's a red flare at some point, about 3.5, 4K to go, and Nibali goes down, and you get tangled up in that somehow, but you can't see on the TV images what actually happened. Can you remember what the turn of events that happened, how Nibali went down?
Yeah, I don't really remember exactly what happened, to be honest, because I didn't see, because as I say, the crowd was so close, and I think he just ended up hitting someone, and I think there was some barriers there or something. I don't really know, but I managed to just avoid him. But there was a bit of a gap to me and the other boys.
You had to unclip, did you?
Yeah. And then I got back up to them, and then it was a bit of a stalemate. We weren't really thinking, we should wait for Nibali. I wasn't going to do that, but it was kind of just who's going to go type thing.
Well, it looked like the guys in the front didn't wait for you either. So you kind of had to.
And the guys in front at the time were, so we're talking, you're riding G with Big Tom Dumoulin, Froome,
Bardet,
Roman Bardet. Yeah. Did you have Landa with you as well, Mikel Landa, at that point? Or
I think he was yo-yoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in and out of the group.
You're riding with the absolute cream of the crop. The Tour is still absolutely up for grabs at this point. Do you sort of see? Do you think that was the last time you were going to see them when you had to unclip there? Because they didn't. Obviously, Froome didn't wait for you.
No, no. I just felt like I could do what I wanted almost, which is really weird because. When I started out as a pro, it was just survival mode. I did my first tour in 2007 alongside Brad, and I was just every day was just a grovel just to finish the thing.
I remember me pushing you up the cold ass band in 2007. Yeah. You were having a really bad day because you were only about 10 at the time, weren't you?
But yeah, that was just grim. So I thought of just being there in 18, with legs like that and just being able to respond to stuff. And then it wasn't until maybe 2K to go. I having Froome in the team, so determined to win was probably a blessing in the end because I didn't let it get to my head. And I thought, if he attacks, I'm just going to use that. The other guys have to ride. Yeah. And if he's behind and I'm not feeling too good, I'll just say I'm waiting for him, So I'd use it to my advantage. But it was I think maybe if I was younger, if I wasn't 32 and had all that more experience, I think I could have cracked maybe and dealt with it slightly differently. But in the end, it was all good in the end. And I was just on defensive mode for most of it. And then we get to the final corner. And I think I was the only one to sort of take it wide and take any speed into it. The rest kind of went, if you're coming into a corner, you go on the outside, don't you? Cut the apex and sprint out.
And you walked the sprint though, didn't you? I mean, it was like you hadn't done the climb. You were considerably better than everyone else in the sprint.
Yeah, I was surprised myself. Really. I did my best ever peak power. I think. Jeez. I don't think I've even
was that
done any better than it since. But
a little bit of adrenaline meets sort of your track racing background, kind of mixed together.
I think so. And I think just.
Was it also the realisation you were on the Alpe as well and you could win the Alpe d'Huez stage? Because I remember sending you a message that night you won. And I said, fuck me, you've won on Alpe d'Huez, G. And you sort of, part of the fan in you couldn't believe that. Because one of the things I said to the guys last week is I remember you always, when we were on track camp back in the mid-2000s, you would always say to me things like, what would you rather win, Brad? Tour of Flanders or Paris-Roubaix? Do you remember you used to say things like that all the time?
Yeah.
Alpe d'Huez or Mont Ventoux? And then you won Alpe d'Huez.
Yeah. Or go grovelling up that climb in the Giro, would you rather be here or in Manchester riding the track?
But no, I mean, you knew what it was to win on Alpe d'Huez. I mean, you're a fan of the sport.
Yeah, just the history of it. Alpe d'Huez it's the climb, of the world really. Like it is the most famous.
So, G, your reaction afterwards is one of the most sort of famous images from your career. Your kind of Alpe d'Huez man, and the kind of astonishment at winning it. You get back to the bus. Do things change for you as a team from that point? Are there different directions? Because going in, okay, you were a two-pronged attack, you and Chris Froome, but after that, you've now got a jersey to defend. So surely you become the de facto number one.
Yeah, well, a couple of things there. You say two-pronged attack, like it was always Froome was always in front. That's the feeling I got. That's how it was. Then even after that stage, it was, if anything, the main thing it did was give me the confidence that, I could go on to do something special, but I was never thinking too far ahead. It was always just the next day. But when it came to the team, Froome was still desperate to attack, and at least he'd tell me when he was going to attack. But it's a weird thing when I've got the yellow jersey and the guy that's sat literally like next to me on the bus, like I can touch him, wants to attack me to take the jersey off me, But I think we managed to deal with it okay. Well, we did.
Did you ever talk about it explicitly between you?
Yeah, like a few times we talk about like the situation, and he was just honest and upfront, saying that he still wanted to have a go, and he could go here or there or whatever. And part of me by the end was a bit like, come on, mate, like it's pretty obvious who the better guy is here, but that's just Froome, he's so determined and self-confident,
he's an amazing
and that
athlete.
belief in himself.
He's a phenomenal, like his mindset and everything. And he was going for the double that year as well, wasn't he, with the Giro and Tour, and he was on the verge of creating history.
Wanted to be a part of the five-time club.
Yeah.
And so, G, I mean, you still had a long way to go at that point as well. We're only on stage 12, so you've taken the jersey, the yellow jersey in the Alps. You've then got to go and defend it in the Pyrenees, and you've got to take it all the way through to the time trial. And the time trial was really where you had to defend it and not lose too much time to Tom Dumoulin. Tom Dumoulin at the time, world champion. So building up to that day, having gone in presumably with a little bit less pressure on you, in that everyone's kind of looking at Chris Froome to make it 5. You've now woken up on TT day. And you're staring down the barrel of the world champion who's gunning for you.
Yeah, that was the day I was nervous, to be honest. And until that point, I was confident. I knew what I was doing, and I was just thinking of that day, the next climb. But then with a TT, Brad, what it's like. You do the recon, and then you got 3 hours just on your own in some random hotel room just to think about what's to come. And that's probably the most nervous I was. I was trying to listen to some random podcasts about anything other than cycling, and
TT days are horrible, aren't they? Especially when you're in the race lead.
Yeah.
And the thing I always remember about the time trials, obviously you and Froome would have been pretty close together, so you two would be going through your pre-race routine. But when they start packing stuff away because no one's left, and the bus is getting emptier and emptier, and you're the last one out there warming up, and then the bus is sort of putting all the turbos away, and you get a real sense that everyone's going home, and you're yet to race.
Yeah. It is strange, and the guys off earlier a bit more, jovial or whatever, because it doesn't mean anything to them, and so
everyone's giving you advice as well, aren't they? Like people coming in going, be careful out there.
Yeah.
I'd maybe use a different gear. Don't use a front tri-spoke. People kind of try and get in your head, don't they? And you've got to stick to your own game plan at that point.
Exactly, yeah. And I was kind of lucky, from the track. Like we were used to sort of just getting in that zone and knowing what you're doing, but it was just a lot of extra time to think about stuff. And then once we got going, it was okay. I obviously had that little slip into one of the corners early on, which didn't really help.
You almost chopped it.
Yeah, so then on the radio, they're like, "Oh, take it easy, G." And then I don't know, when somebody's so defensive on the radio, sometimes it's easier. You just got to take the pin out and just do it. Just race it, and you just go. Don't overthink it.
So let's build in a little bit of history while we're here, boys. 13, and in fact a few facts. 13.2 kilometres in length, 1,850 metres of elevation at the summit. 8.1% average gradient with a maximum of 13%, about halfway up. It's one of the things it's most famous for, and we've touched on this already, G, is the fact that Alpe d'Huez, for the week leading up to whichever stage at the Tour it hosts, and particularly on the day, it just turns into one big party. It's like Glastonbury for cycling fans. What's it like being among that? And in particular, what was it like in 2018? Because from memory, it wasn't all positive in terms of fans' reaction to you.
To be honest, the reaction to myself, it was always good, but certainly the end of the 2010s, like Sky was taking quite a bit of abuse from the French. But to be honest, I buzzed off that when you're racing. It's just you just want to win even more, you know, when you're getting a bit of that hate and whatever. But to be honest, on the whole, it was still a great atmosphere. And, you know, every corner has, like, you know, there's the Dutch corner. There was even a Welsh corner in 2018.
Cymru corner
as well.
Cymru
corner, yeah. So, yeah, it's just like the atmosphere is just insane. And it is amazing. But at the same time, when you think about it, you know, they've been drinking all day, well, all night before as well. And to get that close that's the unique thing about cycling, but also the danger. And, you know, as we mentioned with Nibali, you know, you can get taken out, but you tend to not think of the dangers. You don't think of that when you're going downhill. You don't think of the dangers because otherwise you just wouldn't be able to do it. So, but yeah, just really try and like buzz off that atmosphere. And like sometimes you just stop and you just take it in, and it's just like, yeah, you get goosebumps really.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? How no matter how much you're hurting in a particular moment on a particular bend, the minute you see one of your nation with a flag running beside you, passionately cheering you on, how much it takes away from that pain in that split moment.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And like the only bad thing I'd say is the flares, because obviously it's quite hard to breathe when you're doing, like, you know, when you're at threshold or whatever. But it is that atmosphere, the support, it definitely
Was
gives
that
you
the
a boost.
Stage that Froome had a cup of piss thrown over him? Was it on
I don't think so. I think that was it was a different stage, but
Okay.
yeah, but
Never a pleasant thing, that, Graham.
No. Has it ever happened to you?
No, luckily not. Not in a bike race, anyway.
Not yet.
It's funny you listening to you say that you were
Like, kind of a bit nervous that day, because when we were on the track, that was the one thing I always remember about you is nothing really phased you. Like you when we remember we were in the Olympics in Beijing, going to that Olympic final, I was bricking it as usual. Any Olympic final, trying to stay in my. And you and Ed were just sort of joking around. You almost like you didn't realise the sense of occasion. And that was one of the things I always thought about you, was you could take those occasions like just as if you were going out for another bite. Like it was like quite like being a junior again. So it's funny listening to you say that at the Tour, that you kind of sense that, because that was your greatest forte. One of your best things, I think, was taking things in your stride.
Yeah, and it still was, but then it's hard. Those thoughts do come into your head from time to time. And I remember just lying in this random hotel room, like looking at the ceiling, thinking, "Shit, I can actually win the Tour today." That's when I was like, that's just. And I was like, "Nah, don't even like contemplate that. Just think about the process. Do this, the first half of the race, whatever. Break the time trial down, you know. So, and then just stick to that. But it's hard to do."
Well, G, we're going to get into it a little bit more with you, plus more on the Alpe, including fans causing chaos on one of the most, or one of the craziest climbs in the sport. And we'll also ask, G's come close, but we'll also ask if the record ascent can ever be beaten.
Welcome back to Café Aficionado. We're here with the great Geraint Thomas, and Graham, you're with us as always.
the striving for greatness still. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the races, the history on the Alpe.
Well, we're going to get into it, but we'll keep it brief. So, we'll start in the mid-90s, or the early 90s. Your man, Gianni Bugno, winning twice in as many years, 1990, 1991. Then Italian dominance through to the middle of the decade with Marco Pantani, 95 and 97, the latter of which he set the course record, or the climb record, I should say. Before that, we saw the most famous battle for GC teammates, Levi Claire, with Bernardino and Greg LeMond, going for the 1986 Tour. And then more recently, obviously we've seen G do it in amazing fashion, but G was also first-hand he was there in person to see Tom Pidcock.
Yeah, he was.
With one of the most ridiculous rides in recent memory. Should we start with Marco Pantani and his ridiculous climbs? Were you old enough to remember these?
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager. I remember Marco, 95, watching him in Carrera when he went off the front. That was the first time the year before, he broke through at the Tour de France, winning a couple of stages, broke through at the Giro that year, finished on the podium when Evgeny Berzin won. And, that was really the pomp of Marco Pantani. But definitely 95, and then, of course, 97 as well he won, Pantani, Mercatone. That was after the leg break. So, I'm well acquainted with those years.
So that's the fastest time. The record is 37 minutes, 35 seconds, so an average of just over 23 kilometres per hour. In 2022, top three times overall, not the top three at the finish, were Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogačar, and yourself, and you climbed the 21 bends in 39 minutes and 8 seconds. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you've done it any quicker. I'll be amazed if you had, given your company that day.
No, that day I was just, those two were just like a yo-yo in front of me. They just attack each other, sit up, and I just keep coming back. And to be fair, if they TT'd up it, they would have gone a hell of a lot quicker, really, if they were messing around. But that was some day, really. Obviously, you mentioned Tom's descent of Galibier. What I will say, it always does look worse on camera, though. Like, when you're following a rider, like in a TT, it always looks a lot more dodgy than when you're actually on the bike. But then obviously Tom won that day, which was amazing for the team. And yeah, for me, though, that day was just all about trying to get up it as quickly as possible. And these two, just Pog and Vingegaard, just attacking each other like nothing else. But I'll always remember that day for sure.
But you just had to keep tempoing back to them. But every time they went, I sort of try and put myself in your shoes. Every time they went, was it a case of, okay, I just need to tempo, focus on my own? How clear in your own mind do you have to be to know that, as tempting as it might be, you can't just try and get onto their wheels and follow them up there? You know you have to play your own game.
Yeah, I knew I just wouldn't be able to follow. You know, if I was spiking like them, then I'd just blow up completely. So I had to just ride my own. You obviously have to increase your pace, but you time trial it a lot more. Otherwise I might follow for 2 or 3 times and then I just completely blow up and lose minutes, you know. So that was the best way of me getting from bottom to top as quickly as possible.
So, boys, just before we move it on, let's just revisit Marco Pantani's record, which is, depending on where you get your information from, is either 36 minutes and 50 seconds or 37 minutes 35 seconds. G, we reckon yours is 39 minutes 8 seconds. Brad, you've got to be well under 45.
For me?
Yeah, any idea?
Oh, no. I think I've only done it once, and I was 123rd.
I can tell you mine for the sake of comparison.
Yeah, no. So,
would you like to guess? Is it under or over the hour?
Probably just under the hour.
It is well over the hour. It's
well over. Is it?
1 hour, 17 minutes and 47 seconds. But what I'm really coming to here is, and it's certainly not going to be me, but can Marco Pantani's record ever be beaten?
Of course it can, yeah. Like every other record in cycling at the moment, which is being smashed. Simon Yates at the weekend, or whenever it was, with the Finisterre on the Giro. For sure it'll be broken. And I think it has already been broken on the Strava thing recently by a gentleman who couldn't even get a pro contract.
Now we might have to look into that. But in terms of pro riders, G, can you see it being beaten? Can you see it being beaten at the Tour de France?
I think so, yeah, as well. Like if it was in the Tour, it's not in there this year, but maybe in 26 if it's in there. I don't see why Pog, if he's the same level as he is now. It's just like everything's moved on, like equipment, nutrition, methods of training, everything, you know. And I think the whole cycling world is completely like changing, really, all this data and everything. So, and Pog, you know, we've already said probably the greatest ever. I put money on him being able to break it. If it all depends on the race, though, doesn't it? Like if they're bottom to top as quick as they can, then for sure. But if it turns into a bit of cat and mouse, then obviously that changes things. But
you've got to figure if he goes out for it and sets us a target,
yes,
he usually gets them. Doesn't
he? I mean, he's capable of it, isn't he? Definitely.
Yeah. And what's it like riding with Pogačar in the peloton and coming up against him in these races, on these famous climbs? Like
Pain in the arse, mate.
But you're aware that
It's
you're
horrible.
you must be aware that you are also in the presence of sort of all-time greatness.
Yeah, like it's just insane what he's done the last 2 years, you know, or 18 months to this point. But you just know it's special, and it's it's one in a generation, if not the best ever. So you obviously got to marvel at it and give him a lot of praise, but at the same time you got to race him, and you need to try to believe that anything can happen. And yeah, just get out there and do your best with the boys. But it's tough coming up against the likes of him, that's for sure.
Do you ever have a chat with him when you're on a climb and you're kind of in a small group like that?
Not the ends of the race, no. But before Liège, we start up this drag, and he came up and started chatting to me then, and I'm doing like 420, 440 watts, and I'm just thinking, mate, I don't want to talk right now. I just want to concentrate on breathing, you know. And he's just there next to me, just like it's a Sunday stroll, you know. So different breed, that boy.
You've spanned quite a few generations of riders, haven't you, since your first tour in 2007? I mean, the Contador era, Froome, Pogacar, and he was still competitive last year in the Giro with these guys. It's quite a lengthy career, isn't it?
Gee, so we mentioned the Tom Pidcock stage as well, the stage 12, 2022, and let's just underline this. It was one of the most remarkable exhibitions of climbing, and particularly descending. Like, he descended like a demon that day. It's like he was on rails, that I think we've ever seen. But in the lead up to that stage, am I right in understanding that he was sort of badgering the team for a free roll, and he just couldn't wait to be let loose off the leash?
Yeah, well, he obviously... It's a weird one with Tom, you know. He came to the team wanting to ride GC and have a go at the Tour, but he was never really in the position to do it. But yeah, and he's a winner, and he wanted his success, and he was that was a good day for him, really. And the way the race was going, it worked out perfect, really, because over Galibier, Visma or Jumbo at the time were controlling it. So when Tom went over the top, they weren't too bothered about it, really. So they let him go. And he had that leeway to get across the break then, and then had a great chance of winning because the guys in the break, obviously there were some strong guys. Well, Froome was there, probably the best day Froome's had since his accident, really. And who else? Louis Menkes, who's obviously a good climber, and then the rest, you knew he could put them away. So he was in a great. Once he got across that group, you knew he had a great chance of winning, and he took the bull by the horns, and he made sure he did it.
Yeah, he nudged speeds of nearly 100 kilometres an hour coming off the slopes of both the Galibier and the Croix de Fer. That was thrilling. Brad, talk to me about descending. Have you ever got anywhere near that?
Probably at times, yeah, but not. I've had different moments descending, but I was always one that didn't. I was always thinking of the risk element of descending and things like that. And I think when you're in a yellow jersey or in a position like that, you think more of the risk, and it's about taking calculated risks. Tom was out the GC that day. Geraint was fighting for the podium, and I think when you've got nothing to lose or gain really from something like that, you tend to take your head off a bit more. Descending is about just letting your head go and not thinking of the risks on each corner and getting down in one piece.
Yeah, and particularly in your latter career, presumably you're always thinking about what you've got to lose at that point. Whereas Tom, he had the benefit of youth on his side as well, and the fearlessness.
Yeah,
of that.
certainly when you've had a few big crashes as well, you kind of realise that you're not invincible, and stuff can go wrong. But at the same time, when it comes to that crunch moment in the race, you still have to sort of, as I said before, just take that pin out and just go on autopilot, really. But it's weird. It's kind of like some days you just do feel like one with your bike and you're just going and it's flowing nicely, and then other days it can just, for whatever reason, you just don't feel too smooth, and every corner seems a bit more like a 50 pence piece rather than nice smooth corners and whatever. But like with Thomas, he's certainly one of the best and most confident in the peloton. So it's unreal when you see it.
Talked about how your career, G, has spanned so many superb riders. I was going to mention Joop, and I'm going to mangle the pronunciation of his name here, Brad. Joop Zoetemelk.
Yep.
6-time second place on the GC at the Tour. He was one of the first Dutchmen. He's one of the reasons that Alpe d'Huez is called Dutch Mountain, and Dutch Corner is so celebrated. But he not only came second 6 times on GC, he did manage to win it in 1980. But his career spanned Eddy Merckx. So he rode against Merckx for the Tour. And at the other end of his career, he came across Bernardino and Greg LeMond.
Yeah, and he won the World Championships at 40 years of age.
In 1985.
Yeah, so he had an incredibly long career and spanned, as you say, quite a few different generations and world-class generations as well.
G, which corner? We should mention the fact that if you win on Duez, then you get your name on a plaque. Which corner is your name on?
I think it's 13. And when they put my name up, they put it the wrong way around as well. They always tell me Thomas is my first name. Like, like you know what the French are like. It's like, mate, it's my name. I think I know which way around it is, but they've changed it now. But yeah, I think it's 13, which is pretty cool, really. We've actually booked a skiing holiday for January. I've never skied before, so we're going to go for the first time. And we're going to go Alpe d'Huez, so
brilliant.
That'll be pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, gents, time for our regular feature, the Ultimate Cyclist. G, if you're unaware, every week we build the Ultimate Tour Cyclist. It's 10 vital attributes that we're looking for across our episodes or across this series. 10 different riders who embody in their own different ways physical and mental assets. When you put them all together, it's a puzzle that will mean this particular Frankenstein of a rider is unbeatable on the road. Today's attribute, as a kind of tribute to our guest Brad, is heart.
Yes, heart. So determination, picking yourself up when you're down, crashing, and everything that goes with it, really. Because you need a lot of heart to cycle, don't you? Heart to win the Tour de France or race well in it.
I think there's a quote from Dave Brailsford that basically goes something like, if you want suffering, then G is your man. If you want a rider to suffer, then G is your man. So should we go to G for his one? G, if you had to pick a cyclist in history who represents better than anyone else, heart, who are you going to go for? Blood and guts.
It's quite an obvious one because we spoke to him already and he's been a teammate for so long, but I think Chris Froome would be my shout. Sorry, it's a bit obvious, but I think just from riding with him, like his determination and self-belief, and even when he's lost minutes, he still thinks he can win, and he's had so many knockbacks, and how he came to the sport, like growing up in South Africa and, again, locked in, I don't know, ostrich pens by his brothers, and running from hippos and all this type of stuff. And then he's winning the Tour de France, running up the Ventoux because, that's the only thing that came to his head when he crashed, and then he just starts running because he doesn't have a bike. It's just like, his belief, self-confidence, like always giving everything every day. Even the training before it, from November all the way through to the Tour, he was so determined, like looking at every little advantage he can get, different foods and whatever, and just loved being at altitude, always pushing himself. And for me, seeing it firsthand, it'd be Froome.
Right, beat that, Brad.
Well, I this is going to sound a bit naff, but I was going to pick Geraint for this one, only because, mainly because of the Tour de France you rode with a broken pelvis. Is it 2013?
Yeah, Corsica.
Which
that's right.
I never forget. And I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been like. And then, obviously, the other thing that springs to mind is you were on for possibly a gold medal, or certainly a medal of some colour, at the Olympic road race in Rio when you crashed, got yourself up. When you won the prologue in 2017, a couple of days later, or was it the day later you crashed, broke your collarbone, or a week later was it? And I only remember you for crashing and how you pulled yourself back afterwards, and that kind of, your first thought was to get to the finish line, no matter how bad you was, to assess your condition for the next day. And that's certainly something I wasn't capable of doing. And for that reason, I'll pick a G.
It's very, very difficult not to pick him, even though G's choice
just
is
a few of the
the few of the crashes. So I think possibly for the 2013 tour alone, crashing on the first stage in Corsica and then riding all 21 stages. Over cobbles that year as well, 2013? Or
Yeah.
I think you're 2014.
2014
2014,
was
the cobbles. in
14, that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gee, I think it's got to be a fractured
go.
pelvis. It's got to be you, because you couldn't get on your bike some mornings, right? You had to be helped on.
Yeah, the first few days were rough, having to get on the turbo and just getting the leg over the bike was hard. But like the main thing for that was because I missed out on 2012 when Brad won, and like, you know, because I was riding the track at the time, so I missed the tour, and I just really wanted to be a part of that. And then so when Froome was, you know, looking like he had a really good chance, I just didn't want to go home, and the doctors were like, you're not going to do it any more harm. So if you can put up with the pain, it was kind of like just a challenge then, really. But luckily every day it did feel a little bit better, and you managed to get through it in the end. But that was tough.
amazing,
I don't know if I'll be able to do that now.
Hard as nails. So hairline fracture of your hip, right? Your pelvis.
Yeah, the top part, like on your back, like the high part there. So it was, there would have been worse places to break it, but it wasn't ideal for the first week or so.
That is not one for me. So G has got to take it for that performance alone. You can check out our Frankenstein of an ultimate cyclist on our Instagram page at Sir Brad's Cafe, and tell us if we were right to choose Geraint as having cycling's biggest heart. The bravest man in cycling. That's what we're going to bestow you.
Definitely.
As a title, G.
Well, I'll accept that.
We've touched on a few highlights or lowlights, depending on how you want to look at them, from your career. The fact that you didn't come off your bike in the 2018 Tour when there seemed to be so many things that could have gone the other way is in itself, and forgive me for saying this, it is in itself a minor miracle given your track record, which you just seem to be one of the unluckiest men on a bike as well, and one of the unluckiest men in pro cycling.
I don't know. I've had my fair share of crashes, obviously, but a lot of them have. The more results you have, the more you stand out, and the more people realise you crash. There's been a lot of other guys that crash more, maybe, but they're not as sort of well known, I guess. But I think since then, well, it's just at some points it's been. There was a period of time, maybe 15, 16, 17, where I had a few big ones. But I always kind of put myself in that danger zone as well. And you was always trying to stay out the winds, and you're always sort of in that bubble where it isn't necessarily ideal. And obviously some were my fault and some you just can't help. But, the Giro, when I crashed out, there was a police motorbike that was on the road. One of the lads in front of me hit it, and nowhere to go. And so things like that, shit happens, doesn't it? But, luckily, like you say, I was managed to have that one tour where I didn't have any bad luck, and it went rather well. So that makes it all okay in the end.
You've obviously got far more to your palmarès than that. Talk to me about the Beijing Olympics. Your first, I think your only gold medal together in the team pursuit squad.
Yeah, we won the world title for 2 years. The 2 years running up to that, broke the world record in Manchester. Geraint, you were only young then. Were you 19, 20, 21? 2008?
Yeah, I was 22 by Beijing came round, but I was 20
I remember
when I
that
joined
was
the squad.
the rejuvenation of the British team pursuit squad. We were getting battered every year by the Australians, Athens Olympics, World Championships in Stuttgart. And then G came along as this, just out of juniors, junior world champion, and went into the squad into Bordeaux in 2006, and they just lost the gold medal by half a second or something. And then from that moment on, with him and Ed, we built the makings of a world-class team pursuit squad. So I remember the excitement from myself and Paul Manning, who were the sort of elder riders in that group, was we were over the moon. We've got two young riders here that we can actually compete with the Australians. So for that 2 years, I think we went everywhere together, and it was all about winning Olympic gold. And we did it.
Is it? You did it, yeah. And then you went and did it again.
Yeah.
And again. Gee, I want to bounce back to some of the other highlights from your palmarès, because the other thing I would really want to ask you while we're looking back at your career is, we're talking about Paris-Nice in 2016, the Tour de Suisse in 2022, the Dauphiné 2018 as well, in the lead up to your tour win, the Tour de Romandie in 2021, E3 Harelbeke. So apart from your Olympic golds and the Tour de France, if we can take those out of the equation, What's your proudest moment on the bike in terms of your wins, in terms of your victories?
Oh, it's a tough one because Paris was kind of like the third time trying. I'd crashed out the two previous. Then the Dauphiné is just so big, but then E3 as well. Like it's kind of like the one below the two monuments, Roubaix and Flanders, and the way I won that as well with Peter Sagan, who was at the height of his powers at the time, and Stibar, who was, a super talented like cyclocross guy and rode for Quick-Step. And I'd probably say E3 if I had to choose, because to put those two away, I jumped in with maybe 4K to go. I was the one to attack up Quaremont as well and took those two with me, and that was one of those days where you just, Belgians kind of say diamonds in the legs, you just don't really feel the pedals. It was just like playing with them almost, and I knew exactly where I was going to attack and when and how, and went for it and had the legs to pull it off. So I think E3 probably, because it's just, you cross the line first as well. Like when it's like Dauphiné, I didn't actually win a stage, I don't think, that year, and obviously it's still a massive race and whatever, but
and the diversity of that, Graham, to do that as well, top 10 in Paris-Roubaix, third in Gent-Wevelgem, it's quite a palmarès, isn't it, when you consider what he's achieved.
Commonwealth Games title as well on the road. When it looked like you punctured, didn't you, in the last few Ks, and it looked like it might slip out of your hands there.
Yeah. So I'd gone away, I don't know, 15K or so to go, punch a 6K to go, and just thinking these two guys are going to catch me now. But luckily there was no race radio, so I think that probably played into my hands at that point, because they were just racing for second then. But that was obviously special because, I love Wales and rugby and stuff, and you never really get to put on that Welsh jersey, only at the commies, and I've only done it 3 times maybe. So to win for Wales, and then ended up carrying, it was on the last day of the games, so they asked me to carry the flag at the closing ceremony as well, which was super special. So that was obviously a big deal as well.
G, we're told you love a dad joke, so we've been we've been through the serious stuff. Let's start to wind it down on a slightly lighter note. Give us your best dad joke, mate.
What do you call a Spanish footballer with no legs? Gracias.
Gracias.
Oh yeah, get it.
Yeah,
it's good,
nice.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay, what about a man with no shins? Tony.
Good.
I don't think any of these.
What do you call it? Cow with no legs. Ground beef.
Is there a story about you smearing banana on the walls from back in the day, and you were accused of it being something else?
Yeah, that was in Junior Worlds in Moscow, and I was rooming with Matt Bramier, who's coach of British cycling at the moment, actually, and he basically put banana in my pillow or something, and I'd like going to sleep, and then took it out, threw it at him, he threw it back at me, and it ended up on the walls, and a bit on the floor on the way to the toilet. But we were late for breakfast, so we just go straight to breakfast, then we come up, and all these Moscow cleaning ladies were just going nuts at us, thinking that it was, poo, basically, because obviously when banana goes off, it goes that type of colour, doesn't it? And that didn't go down too well. Then we got called into the office when we got back, and Dave Brailsford was there, Shane Sutton, and they just gave us a massive bollocking for just not behaving, like when we're representing GB and this, that, and the other. But
What would Shane have said?
Shane, I don't know. Shane always excused riders that he thought a lot of, and he thought a lot of G, and I think talent was more important, and the talent and your possibility of winning things, he'd overlook things like that.
So Sutton was obviously with you, with you both at Team Sky as well, and in the pouring rain in the most dramatic way. It was great.
It was a week after the tour as well, and I just felt terrible. I remember saying to Luke, like, "Oh mate, if you feel good, you can have a go," and he was like, "No, you'll come good," and he was right.
G, we always ask our guests 2 questions on the way out of Café Aficionado. The first is, what keeps you in love with cycling?
Oh, I just love the freedom of it. You just go out and you can go on your own and go wherever you want. Especially that's what got me into it as a kid. You get to just, your boundaries go so much further. But I think just pushing myself as well, like just that, getting back from a long ride and you just feel tired, but it's a nice sort of tiredness. And obviously the racing as well is great, but just riding my bike is, just love it.
And then final question, Brad. Over to you as the patron of Café Aficionado.
Yeah, what's your go-to at Cafe G? What's your order, coffee-wise?
It's always a flat white, yeah. Normally
Oat or
2
normal
as
milk?
well.
Oat or normal milk?
Oh, normal milk, mate. Come
There
on.
you go.
And but you're not allowed a cake. When you are allowed a cake, or if you were allowed a cake, what would you go for?
Oh, a carrot cake all day long. It's got to be moist though. It can't be dry.
And what's your favourite cafe, G? What's your favourite bike cafe?
In Nice is a nice new one now. Alvin's is down in the port. Easy to get to, yeah. It's not. I think it's an Aussie bloke or a Kiwi bloke, so it's hard to find in France, you know. So we're lucky.
And what's your one in Wales? What's your one in Cardiff? Cycling cafe.
Ground is a good one. George North's a good mate. He's invested in it as well, so
Okay, there we
got
go.
to support a brother
Stick
out.
it
You
on
know?
the list.
Yeah.
So, G.
Thank you, mate.
Because you're based in Monaco, we should tidy that up. So Nice is just down the road for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we go to Italy most of the time if you want to
Proper
stop anywhere, you know. But you got to plan your stops in France because coffee's terrible.
Yeah, nice. Well, G, thank you so much for joining
you,
us
mate.
in Café Aficionado.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been great, and Swiss in the tour now, and then going to finish a Tour Britain. So it's going to be emotional, I'm sure, but looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Good luck with everything, mate.
On your victory lap.
Nice one. Cheers.
Thanks for coming on, G. Remember, you can follow us on all of the socials at Sir Brad's Cafe, and you can watch us on YouTube. And please hit follow wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for joining us, Brad.
Thanks to you, Graham, and thank you, Geraint, for joining us as always. And thank you for joining us at Café Aficionado. See you next time for another ride.